Friends, tacticians, fellow enjoyers of Sword of Convallaria, would you believe it has already been a year since this game released in the West? I could barely believe it. But then I found out that not only has it been a year, but there's a slew of new stuff going on in-game to celebrate that 1-year anniversary. And today, we're going to talk about exactly what all of that is. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my coverage of turn-based strategy RPGs such as Sword of Convallaria and their big 1-year anniversary events, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Also, huge shout out to the team at Sword of Convallaria and developer XD for sponsoring this video. I always appreciate the support from them, and I'm always happy to check this game out because I do really enjoy it, especially the Spiral of Destinies mode. So when they reached out and offered to work with me on this one, I was more than happy to accept. If at any point during or after this video you are at all interested in checking out Sword of Convallaria, and I highly recommend that you do, you'll find download links for it in the description of the video and the pinned comment. I highly recommend that you go and check it out. I've always really enjoyed my time with the game. I think there's a very good chance that you will as well if you're a fan of turn-based strategy RPGs, and let's be honest here, if you're on this channel, you probably are. So what are all of the new things that have been added to Sword of Convallaria for this 1-year anniversary? Well, we have, in no particular order, new major story chapter in the Spiral of Destinies, new characters to play, including Inanna of Convallaria and Rico, with of course related banners in the online mode for each of them if that catches your fancy, 2 new gameplay modes in the Pioneering Odyssey and the Expedition, including a tutorial event for the Expedition titled Voyage into Uncharted Waters to introduce you to it, and of course a ton of celebratory events to give you upgrade mats for your characters, keys for the single-player campaign, and gems to summon in the online mode, again, if that is what you're into. We'll be talking about all of this today as we dive back into the lands of Elysium, starting, of course, with my personal favorite aspect of the update, that new campaign chapter in the Spiral of Destinies. If you're new to the channel and not familiar with how Sword of Convallaria works, it basically has 2 distinct halves. The Spiral of Destinies is a traditional turn-based strategy RPG single-player campaign experience where you go through, make choices, meet and recruit different characters to your team, and potentially wind up on very different story paths that lead to very different resolutions for said characters. You then also have the Fool's Journey tarot-themed online gacha mode where you will have a different type of story that you can go through, summon characters, build them up, get weapons, potentially do PvP against other people, all the classic stuff that you would expect from a mode like that, and the 2 are pretty much completely bespoke from each other. This means when major updates happen, you not only will get story updates for the Fool's Journey, but also, typically, whole new chapters for the Spiral of Destinies, which is what we're looking at here today. This chapter is known as For This World of Peace, and is interesting in that it actually takes place after what is essentially the golden route ending of the base story of Sword of Convallaria, following up with the characters that were involved in that storyline as they move forward into the next chapter of all of the events of the world. This means there are a lot of different characters that you may be familiar with from different paths of the storyline coming together and uniting to deal with kind of the remnants of previous major threats, while new villains and major issues wind up coming to the fore as you do deal with that remnant force. Some of those characters include, of course, the newly released version of Inanna, who has risen up to take her place as the proper leader of this region of the world, as well as members of the Union like Gloria, the long-standing members of the Sword of Convallaria themselves, members of the Church such as Judge Samantha, and the Beast Tribe such as Nona Will, a lot of different characters that, again, you'll probably be familiar with. As someone who loves to actually see branching storylines come together and actually give you the opportunity to have some of these characters meet and interact in maybe less volatile ways than you've experienced with them in their own dedicated storylines, this was really cool to see, and it allowed for some fun opportunities to do some unique team building based on the different types of units that you could recruit as a result. A lot of the battles and challenges at hand were a lot more intense than some of the battles that I experienced playing some of the base stories of Sword of Convallaria. Maps are way bigger, you've got more varied objectives, the team sizes that you can bring to the table are bigger, and very often there's going to be quite a few more enemy and allied units on the board simultaneously, making things feel a lot more involved and dynamic than some of the smaller, more skirmishy fights that you get introduced to the game with. This actually got so intense that there were points where I had to actually go back and retry major story battles because I just wasn't well prepared for them. I didn't have the right team, I didn't have the right setup going in, or the right formation to move my characters where I needed them to move, or just made bad maneuvers in general that led to the AI taking advantage of it and beating me. And that's not really something that I experienced much in other story chapters of the game. And as a lover of challenge, that was really cool to see. Add on to that fact that there's actually a pretty intense boss battle at about the midway point of the campaign, where you have a lot of very scary enemies that you have to deal with, and even the powerful allies that get summoned to help you can absolutely take a major beating as you try to figure out the mechanics, actual mechanics, and run down the boss to actually finally beat him. Was pretty wild and made for a lengthy and very satisfying conclusion to that arc of this storyline. And speaking of that storyline, there was actually some pretty interesting character development and twists here that I was not expecting as well. Of course, I won't get into them. I'd rather you experience it for yourself, but let's just say that I was not expecting the story to go where it went once I kind of wrapped up those initial straggling remnants of previous enemies from previous storylines, only to get slammed in the face by some new major threats that I really did not see coming. Bundle that in with the very satisfying week-to-week gameplay loop that Sword of Convallaria already has, with recruiting new characters, training them up, making sure you put people in the infirmary, forging new weapons, going on side quests, and there's even some new functionality for side quests and how you dispatch characters and can get access to different types of missions and unlock different regions of the map for more bonuses as you progress. Was really still just as satisfying, if not even more satisfying than it was on the game's release, and it makes for a very enjoyable campaign experience. I can't really get into too much more without getting into, again, pretty heavy spoiler territory, but if you were at all interested in Sword of Convallaria, you've played it in the past or maybe had your eye on it, I definitely recommend checking it out. You will have to do a lot of story gameplay before you get to the point where this new story chapter is logically unlocked for you. You can skip to it if you want, but there's going to be a lot of story that you don't understand, so I don't recommend doing that. But this is definitely a fun conclusion to the storylines you will see when you first start playing, and I'm excited for what it leads into as the game continues to develop said story. Now, we mentioned Inanna already, so this seems like a good opportunity to talk about our two new major characters that have been introduced to the game as playable units, Inanna of Convallaria and Rico. They're both playable in this Spiral of Destinies campaign, and of course are summonable if you want to be able to use them in the Fool's Journey mode as well. I didn't get the chance to play around with Rico too much. She does get introduced in the story, but I'd pretty much established the team that I wanted to use primarily by the time she came in, so I didn't make great use of her, and in the sort of early access period that I had available to me, she'd not actually been released for summon yet, so I can't speak to her character too much beyond the fact that she is absolutely an explosive damage powerhouse with a lot of AoE abilities, sort of berserker brawler vibe to her that I can definitely see being a very fun frontline damage dealer / bruiser if you don't have one on your team already. Who I can speak to, though, is Inanna of Convallaria in her latest iteration. There's a few different versions of Inanna that you can summon at this point. This version is definitely much more sword and board, spell sword support fighter than her previous more mage support caster type role that she's had, and she is a ton of fun to use. Tossing out huge amounts of buffs to allies for attack, defense, putting shields on, making their attacks more effective, etc. Or a sort of interesting, like, magical counter build where she has a lot of abilities that increase the amount of damage that she does on counterattacks, increases the amount of counterattacks that she can do, and then also allows her to deal magical or physical damage depending on what you need for the scenario. As a max tier character, of course, she is going to be massively powerful with a lot of AoE abilities, but I liked that she wasn't just a delete button for everything. She had powerful attacks, but I definitely felt like I had to use her more to complement the team than just throw her at things and watch it all blow up, which is always nice to see. This is especially true in the Spiral of Destinies, where of course all characters are kind of on an equal playing field and you have to unlock their abilities as you go, but I made great use of her ability to toss heals on allies, give them extra turns, and generally make everyone a bit more powerful so that we could survive some of those crazy late game battles that I was alluding to earlier. If you're playing the Fool's Journey mode and you're looking for a character to deal damage and support the team, you can definitely do worse than Inanna. I recommend checking her out if you are at all interested. But say you've now cleared the Spiral of Destinies, you've summoned your characters, and you're looking for something else to use them in. Well, that's where our two new modes, the Pioneering Odyssey and the Expedition, can come into play. We'll talk about the Pioneering Odyssey first. This is sort of a dungeon delvey sort of game mode where over time you'll collect resources from the dungeon that you can then use to upgrade separate skill trees that are relevant to each different type of character that you can have. So, you know, your strikers or what have you. That'll give them extra stats, make them more effective against their preferred targets in the sort of weapon triangle-esque system that sort of Convallaria has going on. And it's a nice form of progression where you can actually make some choices to have your army function the way that you want. I love a good skill tree, and having skill trees for each different type of character class is always a fun way to go. As your party spends time going through the dungeon and battling their way through monsters, you'll be able to take on extra battles yourself to increase the rate at which you unlock these resources, which is of course vital, because not only are they what allow you to power up your specific character classes, but they're also what allows you to stay steady as an overall party with the monsters that you're going to be facing. Essentially how it works is your party and the monsters each have a power tier, and once their power tier starts to overmatch your own, you of course start losing power and they start gaining power. So you want to gain resources so you can increase your power for your party so you can outpace the monsters, and the only way you can do that is by leveling up all of your different skill trees to unlock these bonuses. And I gotta say, some of these battles were pretty tough. I very often found myself having to rely very heavily on the terrain and its features to overcome certain enemies who would otherwise just batter me into the dirt. There's a lot of cleverly placed explosive barrels, pits that you can knock enemies into, and the like, that really encourage you to think about where you're able to lead enemies to, and what sort of AoE ranged and knockback abilities you're bringing on your team to be able to handle them. Some of the fights are a bit more straightforward brawls than others, but it's nice that there is some variety to not only what types of enemies and terrain you have, but how much you're able to just outright fight versus use that terrain to your advantage. I hadn't encountered anything that is just outright impossible just yet, but I also brought my synergistic team of Union members that I always like to use along with Anana, so we did have a lot of nice synergistic self-buffs going on. It's definitely not the most explosive damage team, which might be why I struggled with some of the tankier enemies, but on the flip side, I can distribute a lot of shields, a lot of healing, and have a fair bit of area control that makes it much easier to navigate a wider range of scenarios, which I enjoy. That said, if you have some absolutely cracked damage dealer, you might be able to just blitz through these fights. I don't know, you'll have to let me know in the comments if you try it out for yourself. So now you might be asking yourself, what do you do with all of those power levels once you've acquired them, right? Well, that's what you're going to be getting in the Pioneer Challenge half of the Pioneering Odyssey. The second half is the Stellar Pioneer mode, and that's where the big boys go to play after they've trained up in the kiddie pool that is the Pioneer Challenge. I've not even been able to attempt this yet, as you have to be at least at power level 10 to be on an even playing field with the monsters here, but essentially each of these fights looks like they're going to be a different type of scenario with increasing tiers of enemy power, so that as you go through your expedition, you power up your team, you can then come in and try, all right, I want to try the level 20 battle now across all of the different scenarios that are presented for you, meaning there should be a lot of cool battles and a lot of nice rewards that you can get for once you're actually powerful enough to take on these challenges. And I do absolutely expect that there'll be challenges, no doubt about that. I personally can't wait to see what that actually entails and how difficult they might be, but it's going to be a little while yet before my team is powerful enough to even attempt it, while I'm still making sure that I can get through the kiddie pool section. Speaking of expeditioning and dungeon diving, we do need to talk about the actual game mode expedition now as well, which is a bit more of a casual mode to just get some extra materials and rewards in a nice little mini choose-your-own-adventure game sort of format. Essentially how this works is you'll go out to a stellar lighthouse and you'll choose an expedition leader based on who's going to give you the best benefits for the expedition that you're going on. For example, the game starts you off using Mytha because her character class makes her a recommended captain for the expedition, and you get more rewards and more progress towards the next destination as a result. Over time, you'll be able to add more characters to each expedition, send multiple expeditions out simultaneously, and after about an hour, they'll come back and you'll have a little story snippet where they encountered people on the road, or maybe a group of bandits in a town and had to fight them off, and then you typically get a choice at the end where you can say, okay, I have 3 or 4 options on how I want to resolve. There's a starving group of refugees, or a group of knights helped us during a tough fight and we need to figure out how to reward them, and how you want to actually approach doing that. Each answer can give you different benefits, some definitely much better than others, and occasionally you'll even find a different answer that is specifically due to the captain that you have for the expedition, which in my experience tends to give you the best awards. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of different leveled characters, because of course how powerful your captain is will directly impact how many awards and how much progress you make. But you want to have plenty of different characters so that you can go in, get the best awards, and get more mats to upgrade your guys, and then hopefully maybe not get stomped in the Stellar Pioneer mode. What's nice is there is a whole tutorial event right now for the expedition that explains exactly how it works for you, thus why it recommends Mytha. So if you're looking to get into the game and try this mode out, it will be good at easing you into understanding how all of its different layered systems work. And of course, finally, it is worth mentioning that due to this anniversary event, there are a ton of other login events and different limited time modes and games and things that you can play to get all sorts of different upgrade materials for all your different characters and all of your different weapons. If you, like me, haven't played Sword of Convallaria for a while, but it's something that you've always wanted to get back to, definitely a good opportunity to do so, as you will get a nice kickstart to power up some of your characters that have maybe lapsed a little bit, or if you do wind up summoning characters like Inanna, a good way to help give her a boost very quickly. All told, I've really enjoyed my return to Sword of Convallaria and the world of Elysium. I've been itching to play more of this game and just haven't had the time, so having a 1-year anniversary event to bring new story events to the table, bring new characters, bring new game modes, it really felt like the opportune time to jump in, and then of course, when the Sword of Convallaria team and XD offered to sponsor the video, even more so. I personally can't wait to see where the story in the Spiral of Destinies goes from here. There's still a bunch of story content that I haven't even gotten to from this update that I'm very excited to see. And not for nothing, but I've really been enjoying the Fool's Journey as well, more than I thought I did when the game first came out. There's a lot of interesting story events there, a lot of fun and challenging battles to go through, and I do enjoy leveling up the characters in this game, especially because like even your base level guys, your generics, are pretty dang functional, especially if you put them in a good team where they can be synergistic with your other characters. So I'm eager to continue getting back into Sword of Convallaria, and I'm eager to see what you guys think about this update as well. I know a bunch of y'all played back when the game first came out. Have you still been playing all this time, or do you think this might be your chance to get back in alongside me? Regardless what you do, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. We can have a nice little chinwag down there, as our folks across the pond might say. And of course, thank you all so much for watching. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, y'all. And remember, be good to each other. See you in Elysium. Bye now.